like Botox without Botox.
Zoom, Botox.
It
Uh,
works for me.
you've got the
How?
the Botox filter on? Is that what you're
I
saying?
think so. You
I
must have the Botox filter on. It's like so clean.
100%. I have the fish face filter. Making scraps.
Yes, yes, on a Monday morning. How
Yes.
are you, my friend? How was your
I
weekend?
Oh, well, it was a weekend of ups and downs.
Oh,
The ups, fortunately, it didn't feel like they were outweighed. I mean, it felt like they were outweighed by the downs, but now I'm like, okay, the ups make it all right. Like the downs are now kind of, I hope, obliterated. Uh, so I'm feeling better. It
good.
was a rough start to the weekend, and then we ended up having a good outcome. So fingers crossed that it stays that way because yeah. Yeah, how about you? How was your weekend?
Yeah,
You were out to lunch all day yesterday.
we were, I'm out to lunch most days, Lisa. Let's be honest here.
Okay.
No, we were out on a boat actually. So we went
Yes.
boating a few times over the weekend, hosted some friends, and yeah, it was fantastic. Cannot complain at all. The weather was
Oh, awesome.
perfect and it was beautiful. And yeah, it
Oh,
was
that is
good.
such a good. I mean, how lucky are we to live out here?
Oh
We
man,
can be like,
so
sorry, I was on a boat. I couldn't get back to you.
I know it sounds so, kind of like
It's
snooty or
very
whatever.
bougie.
It's
You're
bougie,
very
bougie.
bougie.
Not really. The funnest part for me is putting together all the food.
Yes, yes, I can see that. Definitely.
Ah,
Well,
so,
speaking of food, what have you been baking? You
mhm.
not on a boat. Baking on a boat is my husband's idea, but I guess I should cut that out because he thinks it's a great idea that we should go around on a boat and bake for all the people on the small islands. It sounds like
Oh.
hell to me.
Well, unless you have a really nice boat that has all of the tools and appliances that you need in
Mhm,
order to do
mhm,
that, I think
mhm.
it's actually maybe a great aspirational goal to have.
Yeah, no,
So
no,
Lisa's like, not.
he basically wants us to like seek out kitchens to bake in and then just
Oh,
carry the
okay.
baking around on a boat, which
Oh.
yeah, I'm sorry, it doesn't appeal to me. If I'm on a boat, I want to be relaxing and I love him and he has great ideas, which is why I said I should cut this out because someone's going to take that idea and run with it. But we don't have enough viewers to worry about that at this point.
You never know. We could be blowing up at any moment.
That's true. That's true. Chris might get mad at me. But anyway, continue. Did you bake?
Yes. So what did I bake? Well, I actually am back in my baking era, of course, as you know. That
Yes.
continued this past week. I ended up making some sourdough and I did a cinnamon swirl sourdough
Yeah.
bread, which was delicious. It didn't have the spring that I was
Yeah.
really hoping for. And I know why it didn't. I just didn't when I was shaping it, I didn't actually have enough tension built in
Okay.
because I didn't want to disturb kind of the cinnamon swirl piece of
Right.
it.
Yeah, that
So
makes
I was
sense.
a little concerned about that. So I just kind of dumped it and it was just a loaf for us. So it's always good to kind of
Sure.
experiment. But the crumb was actually really good. It had nice little air bubbles and the
Awesome.
swirl part was pretty decent and the taste was out of this world
Oh,
delicious. So
so good.
happy with how that turned out, except for the spring. So,
Yeah.
so Lisa, what have you been baking?
I I actually baked something that was very special to me.
Mm.
So, as you know, by trade, I am a labor and delivery nurse.
Mm.
And 3 years ago, I was working on our antepartum unit, which is for people who are having some kind of issue with their pregnancy that they need to be monitored and hospitalized. And I had a patient who was pregnant with twins, and there was an issue with the babies. And so we were keeping
Mm.
her there. She was there about 2 months.
Oh,
And
wow.
strangely, I was posted to be on that antepartum unit for most of that entire 2 months. Usually I would go like work on LDR, labor and delivery, most of the time, and then just a very occasional stint on antepartum. And I was there for that pretty much the entire time that she was there. And we got to know each other really well. And then when the babies were born via C-section, I was there with them. And actually looked after one of the babies right after he was delivered. My friend Tracy looked after the other one after he was delivered, and then we were able to be there in the postpartum period as well. And she had asked me, because the patient and I got very close. She had asked me if I would bake their first birthday cake. And so I baked their first birthday cake. I baked their second birthday cake. And then this year I got to bake their third birthday cake.
Oh,
And I will keep doing that every single year. As long as they keep asking me, I will be happy to do it. So it was a Lightning McQueen, well, a race car theme. So I made it like a Cars theme, and it had a little track spiraling up the side of the cake. And the video that they sent me of the boys playing with their little cars on the cake was just like fantastic. It made me so happy. They're so cute. And I'm just so grateful and blessed to have been able to be in their lives for this whole entire time. It's amazing.
oh,
So that was pretty special for me. I loved
so
it.
special. What a great moment. And I know you sent me the video as well. And it was so adorable to see them just zooming around with their cars on your cake. And you sent me a quick note saying they were a little upset when their mom had to take the cake away to actually cut it and serve it to all the people
Yes.
in the party as well. And
Yeah.
how terribly cute is that? You might have to make them a fake one so
Yeah,
they can
no
actually
kidding. Yeah, here you go. Here's a fake cake to drive
yeah,
on. Yeah.
exactly to drive on. But how cute are they?
Were
And
they? I
I
eat
don't
it. I eat it. Oh, he's getting all dirty. He's so cute. I just love you.
toddlers are so adorable. That's my favorite stage ever.
They're the
You
most
know, they're
adorable. Yeah. And now that they're talking so much, it's just like, oh, I need to spend more time with them. But I'm just grateful that I get to be a part of their life, you know? Like
no
that doesn't
kidding.
happen. Usually people have babies and then I'm like with them in this very intense period of time, like one of the biggest moments in their lives. And then off they go. And so it's always
Yep.
so nice when they circle back and I get, pictures or a thank you
Yeah.
card or ask to make their first birthday cake because most of them, you spend enough time there, they find out
Yep.
that I like to bake. And so,
Yep.
yeah, so I'm
Oh,
pretty
how
grateful.
wonderful. How wonderful to be able to marry those two passions together as
Yeah.
well and be able to continue to give that gift of
Yeah.
wonderfulness
Yeah.
to your
My
little
babies,
ones,
my
the babies.
babies. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
It's
cute.
wonderful. So that was pretty
Aw,
special for me.
I
Yeah.
bet. So cool.
Yes.
So cool.
So we have a
So
pretty awesome guest coming on today.
oh, she is fantastic. I love this woman's energy
Yes.
and just how authentic she is. And she is such a pleasure. And we are so lucky to get a chance to interview Stephanie Tucci, also known as by Chefanie on Instagram. And she was recently featured on the Summer Baking Championship, and she
Yes.
was one of the finalists. She got right down to the final three. She's from Canada. She did
Mhm.
Canada So Proud as
She
well
did.
with all her amazing bakes. This woman was such a bright light. She's so much fun. You've got to check it out on
Mhm.
Food Network Summer Baking Championship. I think it is still on. You can still
You can
find
access it. Yeah.
yeah, access it. Thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
Whatever that's called, on demand.
Find
You can
it
find it on demand on TV, and
somewhere.
I highly recommend it. The whole cast was amazing this year, but she, in my mind, stood out the most as far as being her true, authentic self and just a joy to watch baking her
Definitely.
beautiful
With
creations,
her beautiful specialties like her gelato and yeah, they
her
got her
beautiful
a
flavor combinations.
dude from Carla Hall,
Yes,
it's pretty awesome.
that's like the Paul Hollywood handshake.
I know
Doesn't
it's
happen very often.
no,
So,
and that would feel pretty amazing to get that. So,
yeah.
well,
So,
we're very excited to welcome Stephanie Tucci. Welcome, Stephanie.
yeah.
So nice to talk to you guys and meet you as well.
So excited to have you.
It's so fun. I'm just happy to chat all things, answer whatever questions you have. I'm
Yes.
an open book. So
Fabulous. Okay, so no topics are off limits.
nah,
Ah,
What
oh,
kind
this
of
could
dirt
be
we can-
interesting. You may
So
have just
fun.
opened yourself up to a whole
I
load
know.
of questions you did not know were coming.
Listen,
loves it.
if I could survive reality TV, I can survive your questions. So that's
Yep.
how I look at it.
You know what? I think you're probably right about that. That's for sure. Well, we're
Yeah.
we're gonna probably start off pretty easy. So, if you can just introduce yourself to our 4 viewers. We do have more than that now, but
Don't worry, don't worry. Joys a social media algorithm figuring out, you know? Um,
exactly.
yeah, so I'm Stephanie Tucci. I own I like to call it a micro bakery here in Barrie, Ontario, called by Chefanie.
Yes.
The name by Chefanie was created when I used to work in restaurant kitchens, and I was head chef at a restaurant. And one of my staff members came in one day after a little bit too much partying and stumbled into my office and said, "Chef, I thought about best name for you. I don't want to call you Chef Stephanie anymore. I'm going to call you Chefanie." And I was like, "Okay, man, nobody called me Chef Stephanie, by the way, but fine." I was like, "No problem." And it stuck. And I, give Connor credit still to this day. And yeah, and we'll get into it for sure. But I specialize in unique buttercream cakes and gelato.
That is
Wow.
awesome. I
All the
love
yummy
that. How
stuff.
it's just like, hey, it's too hard to call you that thing that we never call you.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm going to call you this instead.
I was like, sure, okay.
But your name really lends itself to that. It's perfect. And
Absolutely.
I love that. Good for
Yeah.
you, Connor. Well done.
Yes. Thank you, Connor.
And that's how these nicknames often come up, right? It's not like we try to craft our own nickname. I mean, I
No,
did. I
but
tried for a while, but it didn't stick. Nobody calls me Keys. I don't know why.
that's
Piano,
like creatively,
piano.
that's not where I'm strong. I'm not strong in like coming up with like the wording and branding. Like that's not really for me. Like that's where
Yeah.
I hire professional people to do that. So the fact that this was something that then became like my name in restaurant kitchens, and then
Yeah.
my friends started calling me that. My sister-in-law calls me that. It's not even just business, it's like identity. So I don't think I could ever steer from that name now.
I
Yeah.
love that.
It
Yeah.
is
It's your
perfect.
brand, like
Yep.
100% your brand. It's
Yeah.
who
The
you
brand.
are. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I
Absolutely.
definitely I named this like because we have to put a name in for what our
Sure.
podcast is called, and I named it Chefanie. So
Yeah, love
you
that.
know,
We're good. I love that. Spot on.
perfect. So we
Oh.
always start off by asking, what have you been baking lately?
Well, so this is random. Can it be not work related?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like okay, so outside of I try to find a balance between like baking for work and baking for pleasure. And I found myself in this last year, very rarely was I baking for pleasure. I think that my now husband thought it was a great idea to marry a chef because he would get like all this like beautiful stuff all the time, and he always just gets scraps or like or like
But they're
something
delicious.
gone wrong. Still delicious,
The
but
best part of baking.
like he never gets the nice product. And so I found myself, last month saying like, okay, like I think we need to get back to, because sometimes when you bake for a living, sometimes the joy of it is not always there to want to do it on a Sunday afternoon, for example. So I'm trying to get back into that. And I love rustic desserts. So as like fancy as the stuff is for work, I love rustic desserts. I love rustic Italian desserts. That's where it all started for me. So lately, like once a week, I've just been trying to make like either a rustic tea cake, a rustic tart, just something that's like sits out on the counter, have it in the afternoon with like a tea or coffee or part of breakfast, and just, something simple that's not over fussed, over complicated, just easy.
Good and good
That's
flavor.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Something you want to eat in like the afternoon and just like to have around the house. So I'm not, I don't either have to hear him being like, Steph, there's no dessert anywhere and nothing for me, or like me wanting to say, I want something, but I don't want a slice of a whole cake, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
That
Yeah.
sounds cool. So if you are baking for yourself, do you tend to gravitate to a certain flavor profile? And
That's tricky. I think it really depends. It depends on the season. So in the summer, I want to bake with all the fresh fruits possible because in the winter, like let's be honest, okay, like Canada, February, like what? Like we don't really live, like I don't live in a place where it is super seasonal in terms of produce, and that's just the reality, and that's fine. So when I can get the super seasonal things in the summer,
Mhm.
at a farmer's market or wherever it may be, I'm going to gravitate to that. And yeah, throw it into a crumble, throw it into a tart, throw it into, a cake, whatever it may be, just to have access to it.
Mhm.
yeah. Sounds
Yeah.
good. And you
Yeah.
guys had in Ontario one of the best peach seasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're so jealous over here because our Okanagan peaches were devastated by bad weather over the
Yeah.
winter.
Yeah.
So we definitely had some shortages there. But every time I see Ontario bakers or anybody from the East with these beautiful peach desserts, I am just a little bit jealous. I'm not going to lie. So,
It's been a really good season
Mhm.
for peaches, and plums right now have been like amazing. And
Mm.
so I love a good stone fruit. And again, sometimes it's a hit or miss, but when you find them and they're good, I just feel like as great as it is to eat the fruit on its own, if you can throw it into a dessert, it's the most optimal time to do it, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. And do you ever do any preserving of any of the fruits as well? So you can use them throughout the year, like freezing or putting, doing some compotes or jams or anything like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
a huge lover of compotes, jams for sure. It's like, so even in the cakes, or if I'm making a ripple or something for an ice cream or gelato, uh, it, the typical thing is to have it store bought, it's manufactured, or whatever. I try to make everything possibly that I can. So yeah, whether it is a ripple, a compote, a jam, a filling, whatever the case may be, I try to utilize it because I know that the season is short. So if I
Mhm.
can preserve a little bit for longer, I will.
Yeah.
And plus to growing up in an Italian family where, we make our own tomato sauce. My dad grills his own red peppers and preserves them in jars. Like I grew
Mhm.
up with this my whole life.
Mhm.
So it's nice to be able to now apply that also into some dessert aspects, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. Now you started off as a chef,
Uh-huh.
not a baker.
Mm. No, I
So
did nothing in dessert. Yeah.
yeah, so tell us about that journey from going from cooking to now
Yeah.
experiencing or just experimenting with all the
What's
bakes
your
and
origin story? Did you get bitten
yes.
by a pastry?
Yes, what was the
Well,
catalyst to making the change?
well, so yeah, so I started on the savory world and I was in the savory world for about 10 years. I went to culinary school. I lived my New York dream, packed my bags and I was like, see ya, I'm going to New York to become a chef. And like
Woo!
I went to culinary school by day. I worked in kitchens by night. And the first, I don't know if I want to call it pastry, and I'll explain why. So the first pastry job, I'll put in air quotes, I had was I worked at this restaurant in New York. It's no longer around. It was called Pure Food and Wine, and it was New York's premier raw food restaurant. Now, I'm not vegan, I'm not anything, but I wanted to experience what it was like because in my head, I was like, how are they creating all of this food without any heat sources? And all the
Mhm.
celebrities would dine there, wait lists to get in. So I was like, it has to be good. So I got a position in the pastry kitchen, and I couldn't understand how all these things were happening without ovens, proofers,
Yeah.
nothing. It was a dehydrator, and that was it. And
Oh, wow.
it was ceiling to floor dehydrators, and that was it. That was the only thing we had to quote
Cook.
unquote cook anything, right? And my executive chef at the time, her name was Missy, and she just took me under her wing. And at the time, I wouldn't say I fell in love with dessert, but she taught me to think about food differently. And you do, you have to. You have to take, you want to make like a traditional, I don't know, traditional tart, and you can make it, but you're not baking it. We don't have, you're not cooking down a caramel. Like there's nothing. So she taught me how to take a traditional thing, spin it on its head, and reformulate it in a way to make it raw vegan. That was beautiful. That was delicious. That was plated as elegantly as something as you would get in, a traditional pastry kitchen. And I'll never forget that time with her. Like
Mhm.
she literally honed my ability to think about food differently, think about flavors differently, and think about preparing food differently. So I walked away from that experience with so much knowledge and passion, but still like, no, I'm a savory girl. And that was also because, unfortunately, it was a different time. And I worked for a chef who said, only women are pastry chefs. So don't be a typical woman and go work in
Oh,
the savory kitchen. And I was,
great.
like, yes, chef, I won't. And
Was
so,
stuck in your head.
yeah, it stuck in my head. Sorry, you might hear two corgis. Guys, get down. I can't put them anywhere right now.
It's okay. I've
That's
got the
okay.
four in the background that often make an appearance in the.
So, I was like, I have to, he said this and he's this like big chef, and I want to prove that I can stand on the hotline with all the guys. Terrible thought process, but I'd listen to him instead of, I think, listening to maybe what I really wanted to do at the
Mhm.
time. And so I stuck with it. And then I moved back to Toronto and worked in Toronto kitchens here. It was always savory, savory, savory. I landed my first corporate chef job, which I thought was going to be amazing because I was like, oh, wow, I don't have to work weekends anymore. Oh, wow, I have the 9 to 5 life. That doesn't exist in chef world.
Mhm.
But quickly I realized what it meant to climb a corporate ladder and what it meant to be really confined to what you really were able to do.
Mhm.
And at the time I was 30 and I was like, I'm like, I can't, this cannot be for the rest of my life. Like,
Mhm.
absolutely not. So I had a mentor at the time who said, Stephanie, I think you need to really push yourself. I think you need to go to Italy. And I said, that's crazy. Like, like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm skilled enough. And he was like, no, no, that's why you need to go. So there's a school that has a master's program if you've been in the industry for long enough, where it's basically the study of Italian food and oenology, so the art of making wine. And so I applied, I got in, and I was like, well, I guess I'm going to Italy. So
Wow.
I
That's
went there, and
amazing.
again, all savory, 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 until I met this gelato chef, and I'm calling him a gelato chef because for 25 years, all this man has done is master the art of making gelato. So he teaches it, he studies it, he has shops, all these things. And I don't know what it was about this one class, but I left that class saying, I need to, whatever I need to do, I need to get back to Italy and work with this man
Yeah.
because he very similarly thought about gelato in the same way that that very first chef I had, when
Mhm.
she thought about raw vegan dessert, her obsession with like turning food on its head, he had that same obsession but with gelato. And I
Hmm.
think what I realized is these people who have this craft, this specialty over this one beautiful thing, it's incredible. And
Mhm.
those were the people I gravitated towards.
Yeah.
And so then I finished up in Italy. I left, pandemic hit. And I was like, well, great. I can't go back to Italy now to study with him. Italy was like the first one where everything was on major
Yeah.
lockdown.
Mhm.
And then finally in 2021, there was like a little window you could get on a plane. I didn't know if I could get back, but there was a window where it's like, you could travel now, but you need all these things to go. I was like, forget it, I'm going. Got on a plane. I went back and I studied with two incredible gelato masters, and it really like changed the way I thought about everything. And in 2019, when I went to Italy, I left Italy saying I don't want to do savory anymore. But in 2021 is when I said like really ciao for now. I'm sticking with dessert, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
that is incredible.
And that's not very long ago.
No.
No, no, it's not very long ago. Keeping in mind though, right? Like even though I was in savory, there was always still some aspects of dessert, right? Like in culinary school, sorry, you still learn it. I had jobs along the way where dessert was involved. It was just never the forefront.
Right. Got
Um,
it.
and the other thing too is what I loved about Italian dessert, which I still think to this day I would love to incorporate more, just kind of figuring out how right now, is like the rusticness of it. The
Mhm.
desserts that are less fussed, that are less overly complicated, less elements and molecular things, just like beautiful ingredients showcased. And I think that's what Italian food is. And
Yeah.
when it comes to Italian dessert, that's also, the heart of it. So
Mhm.
that's kind of evolution. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but sort of this evolution of what I want to kind of get myself into a bit more.
Yeah. To
And
basically introduce everybody to that
Yeah,
whole aspect
yeah,
of it without feeling like it has to be fancy or extra or, perfectly,
absolutely.
beautifully
There's
presented.
yeah, there's a time and a place for a beautifully decorated cake, but then there's also a time and a place for a rustic Italian tart that's like, just on the table served to your family for a smaller
Yeah.
Mhm.
celebration. Like there's time and a place for it all, right?
Yeah. That
Absolutely.
hominess of it, I think, is pretty key.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure that if anybody can figure out that magic balance between the beautiful, elaborate, gorgeously decorated cakes that you do and marrying that up with that rustic feel and hominess and comfort, you can definitely do that. And so I'm excited to see how that evolves. And I think your Sunday rustic dinner or rustic dessert era that you're in right now, I think will probably lend itself well to kind of developing that over the time. And
I think so. I think so
yeah.
for sure, you know, and I do think right now my business is online. The goal is a brick and mortar eventually one
Mhm.
day. And those are the things that I feel I would prefer to showcase at a brick and mortar level,
Yeah.
rather than it being like custom cake studio,
Mhm.
you know?
Right. And so then that will really influence what your actual structure, what the interior design of it looks like, because then people will know exactly what to expect when they come in, you know?
Absolutely. Like everything will match. You'll know exactly what you're coming to me for and what you're not. And that's something that I stick to even this day. You know, I'm not the girl you come to for a fondant cake. I have people I'll refer you to. If you want the Spider-Man cake, I can refer you. But you know, I'm really like I'm very I really tend to stick to my niche. And so God willing, when a brick and mortar happens, people will know what that niche is too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, we'll definitely
We
come
can't
visit
wait.
you. Can't
Yeah.
wait.
We
You
cannot wait for
you
that
let us
moment.
know when the grand opening is, and we
I
will,
will.
figure out our cross country tour around it.
Absolutely.
That sounds
Absolutely.
wonderful. So, how did you end up being on reality television then? What was your journey to that?
Honestly, I don't even know how this happened. So last October, so we had just moved to where we are now. I was feeling like pretty in the dumps about it because I wasn't really necessarily I didn't love this move in terms of like demographically for me. I was like, I don't know if this is the right place for my business. Anyway, so I was feeling kind of like on the outs. And all of a sudden, I get this random Instagram DM from a casting agency. And I thought it was fake because it only had like 300 followers. And
Right.
not to say that that's anything, but I was like, I just, I just thought like maybe if the Food Network is going to call, maybe it'll come from them. I don't know why I
Yeah.
thought that. I don't know why.
I
But I
think
was
that's pretty logical thinking.
Yes,
I
that
was
is logical.
this is random. I was like, this is so random. I was like, I don't think this is real. This is spam. So I didn't answer the message. And then they messaged me again the next week and they're like, hi, Stephanie. Sorry, we're just like really eager to talk to you about this up and coming baking show. Can you please message us back? And I was like, could you call me? Like, I was like, I want to make sure this is real and you're not going to like take my social insurance number. I don't know. So
All the legit concerns
I
that
know.
people would
Very.
have.
Yeah, and I'm already like not great with DMs to begin with, so I'm just like, this is, all right. So they called me, and it was very real. And basically, they're the people that cast for certain Food Network shows, and they basically said, which I thought this to be very interesting. They were like, and they didn't find me on my Chefanie page. They found me on my personal page, and they said, we came across a cooking video you did. I wasn't even in the video. It was like I was making pasta. I wasn't even in it and they were like just the way the video was it grabbed our attention and what's funny is like I don't have a crazy following. Okay, I don't have this huge number and I appreciate the fact that it's still I don't know I really appreciate the fact that they were really drawn to that video on my page. They connected with who I was regardless of what that number looked like.
Yeah.
And so that said something to me because it can be a bit of like it's a mind game, social media
Mhm.
too, a little bit, right?
Yes.
So
Mhm.
that meant a lot. And so then basically they were like, if you're interested, we can put you in the running for the audition process. And I was like, yeah, sure, saddle up, let's do it. So it was 3 phone interviews. If you passed all 3 phone interviews, you went on to it's like a Zoom audition basically, where you were in front of the producers and they had you make a few things, and they wanted to see your ability to like work and talk at the same time.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, it's still TV. So you gotta like people have to want to watch it for ratings. That's the reality. So I understood. And then I didn't hear anything for a while, and they told me that the process is usually very long. And by the end of the year, I knew that I was in the top running. They were just like picking the, last few people. And then I got the call, and they were like, "Hey, guess what? You're coming to LA. This is your flight information." And I was like, "Oh my God." Like it was wild. It was really honestly just wild. I was like, I literally just said like, "What do I bring?
Mhm.
Can I bring my notebook?" They're like, "Nope, you can't bring anything." And I was like, "Okay." cool. I'll see you guys when I see you. And it was, yeah. And then it just all happened very quickly from there.
So no preparation, no, this is what the theme's gonna be. This is
No,
like,
like, so I knew that I was applying to like summer baking championship.
Mhm.
And so I knew that everything was summer based desserts.
right.
And they were very clear in the interview, like, even like, they were like, if you're going to use cinnamon, it can't taste like fall. So they were like,
Yeah.
everything has to
Okay.
be very like summer forward,
Mhm.
which was tricky too. Like, that's why I stayed away from chocolate desserts because I noticed anybody who was making things with chocolate, they tended to get a ding for this is so great, but it's fall. Like, I'd eat this in
Mhm.
October.
Yeah.
So, you had to really, as long as you knew, but otherwise we had no idea what the challenges were going to be. You
Yeah.
don't know. They basically give you a range. Like, you have to make sure you're well versed in the donut category, cake category, making a leaven dough. Just they really break it down. Make sure you know your pat de choux. Make sure you know how to make every kind of glaze. And then my head's like, oh God, I haven't done some of these things like since culinary school.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's fine. It all works itself out the way it's supposed to. But yeah, it was, then the adventure began.
So were you super nervous or were you just like, I know how to do all this stuff and it's summer, so I get all my fruit and I'm good? Or were you kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is actually something I'm doing?
I mean, I was freaking out because the reality is like, I don't think, listen, I have friends who are pastry chefs at the Michelin star level, okay? And when we talk about these things, the reality is not everybody's walking around all day with all this in their head all the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, we have our basics, we have the knowledge to like quickly figure out how to correct things or whatever, but we all have our own personal Bibles, right? Of all of our notes, all of our quirks, all of our recipes, we have all of that written down somewhere.
Mhm.
And so I was nervous in that regard because I was like, okay, well, on the fly, you really need to be able to think on your feet. And
Mhm.
that's being on a show like this is a true testament of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Luckily, I'm so thankful for my days in restaurant life because that's where all my troubleshooting
Yeah.
happened the most.
Mhm.
So I'm so thankful. And, the only difference is I've done savory TV too, but you can correct things as you go with savory food. In
Yes.
baking, bakes in the oven and you forgot something,
Yeah.
it's too bad. You're
Yeah.
screwed, So that's where the pressure, I think, is a bit higher in
Yes.
when it comes to dessert reality shows.
Yes,
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So you're on the show then, you've got the challenge. How much time did you have between Jesse Palmer saying, here's what you get to make this challenge to when you actually started baking? Like, was it literally like, here's the challenge and then you're
Do
off to
it.
bake? And then do
I
you
mean,
have
so
anything with you,
Industry
like
secrets.
recipes
so
or?
legally what I can say, what I'm allowed
Okay,
to say. I'm on an NDA for a year. So
fair.
legally what I can say is no, like Jesse Palmer says go, but here's the thing. They're not trying to make you have like an epic failure on TV. They're not
Right.
trying to like
No,
ruin your life on television,
no.
right? And I do think that this show is structured different than, let's say, Top Chef, where like I have friends who've done that too, and it was like a lot more grueling in terms of like preparation.
Mhm.
What they do tell you is like before a challenge, because every set is every day we'd come in and things are moved around. So
Mhm.
Jesse would say go, but we actually would have 10 minutes to walk around and make sure we knew where things were. They're not going to make you
Good.
waste time for 20 minutes trying to find, a piece of equipment you need or a certain baking tray or a silicone mat you need. So they are like, okay, we're giving you like 10 minutes, go find like what you think you're going to need for this challenge and then get to your station. So that was pretty fair, because at that time you're also getting a scan of like, hey, what ingredients are available today?
Mhm.
Because if peaches were available yesterday, they might not be on the set for the next day. So
Right.
can't
Mhm.
anticipate being, oh, well, I saw this yesterday, so whatever, I'm going to do this tomorrow. You don't have that ability to do that,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Did you love that kind of thinking on your feet type of thing? Does that like excite you?
It does
Yeah.
because I don't really have that day to day anymore. Like my schedules are so planned, my prep lists are so planned, my menu is set. So it was really nice for me. It felt like a really good reset and recharge to be able to just like use whatever I wanted, and also I didn't have to pay for it. So
Yeah, that's
Yes.
huge.
and
So
I
true.
got to use like whatever equipment I wanted and things that maybe I don't have access to on a day to day anymore that I
Mhm.
miss using or whatever. So that part of it kept for me. I found it very easy to be so creative when you're
Mhm.
looking at a wall of like everything you could want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what was the one tool or appliance or gadget that you wish you had in your own home that is a life changer, game changer?
Glass freezer. They had a
With
glass freezer at,
yes.
I mean, not at every station, but there was, quite a few we could use. And like, as somebody who wants to specialize more in the frozen dessert realm, like I'm
Mhm.
capped with what I can do because I
Mm.
don't have a glass freezer.
Yeah.
Do I want to put a blast freezer in my basement? Probably not because it's going to kill my hydro. So I
Yes.
don't think I would put a blast freezer anywhere unless it was in like an actual brick and mortar,
Yeah.
proper kitchen. But yeah, to have access to that one thing was like a godsend, literally.
Yeah.
Like I used it
Yeah.
any chance I got. I'd be like, going in the blast. I'm going in the blast. Like any time I had, that's where I was.
I know that. I remember when I was making my one of my audition videos for the Great Canadian Baking Show, and I was pretending I was on the show. So I had all these little clips of me doing things, and the one was like, I'm gonna put this in the blast chiller. I'm like, what do you mean we don't have a blast chiller? Because literally, like, that is such a huge thing, being able to quickly cool those things down.
No,
So many different elements of desserts.
absolutely. So yeah,
Yeah.
that would I say that was like and also just like I love really artsy things, and they had every silicone matte
Mm.
shape mold possible. I have some and I love what I have, but they are really good ones are an investment. These silicone
Mhm.
molds, they're quite pricey. So to have access to like any shape you wanted, I
Oh
was like,
man.
could I get a loot bag to take some home? Because
Right.
this is really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding.
I can imagine. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Did that make it even more difficult to kind of like, focus in on what you wanted to actually do because you had so much to choose from? Did it
Mhm.
make it more difficult than maybe having like a dozen of them to choose?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It did because your mind starts like really racing, like, oh my gosh, but I could do this, but I also could do this. But then you really like, I think after the first challenge, or no, I would say after like the first day of challenges, like when we got to day two of the competition, I really learned quickly, like the time limit is no joke. There's no like stopping and like none of that happens. If you have to go to the bathroom, the clock doesn't stop. So
Yeah.
I realized like as much as you want to do like all these things, you have 60 minutes. So you can't waste time and you have to remember like all these things have to get done with your 60 or 90-minute time frame. So yeah, I think like after the first day, I was really like overwhelmed with all the things I could choose.
Yeah.
I really had to realize like, girl, you don't have that much time. You have an hour and a half at the most. So
Yeah.
you have to be strategic.
Pick
Yeah.
one and just
Uh,
go with it.
Just go
No
with it.
second guessing.
Yeah.
yeah.
No.
And I must say you were absolutely fearless on the show. And not only that, but I think your energy and your enthusiasm and your positivity was just so infectious. And it was such a joy watching you create your beautiful creations that were always full of flavor and just always had your special touch. You can see, you definitely stayed true to who you were. And it came out on every single bake that you did. So you should be so proud of making it all the way to the finals and against, Chris and Rob, who were forces to be reckoned with as well. But you were, I mean, and that final challenge, any one of you guys could have taken that and you could really see it in the judges' faces how difficult that decision was.
I,
So
yeah, that was my goal, stay true to myself. And like, because at the end of the day, if I stayed true to who I was, no matter what happened, I wouldn't be disappointed. And I wasn't disappointed. I was so
That's
happy.
awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
yeah, you did Canada so proud, Stephanie.
Thank you.
All right.
I mean, Stephanie, you even got a dude from Carla.
Yeah.
How did that feel? That was for, I think you made it
Dude.
was for one of the gelatos that you made. Like, how did that feel? Because that's like the equivalent of a Paul Hollywood handshake on the British Bake Off.
Absolutely. So what you guys didn't see in that particular episode and why that dude made me so happy was that was the episode that was sponsored by Shark Week, and we had to make a shark cage that sort of encompassed whatever dessert we were making. I am not a chocolatier. I took one chocolate class in culinary school and never took it again. And it just wasn't my thing. And so I
Mhm.
didn't really have a care for it. Fine, whatever. And I honestly didn't think that that was going to be something that would be asked on this show. And the minute they said that, I froze. And that was the only time in this competition I really froze because I was like, how am I going to do this? Because I understand like basic science of chocolate tempering. That's it. That's as far as it goes. So to have to think about how to structure any sort of type of cage, knowing that I was beside Chris and Rob, and both of them have had years of chocolatier work, I was like, just send me home. Send me home. I'm out of here. So I knew that whatever dessert I was making had to be good enough to make up for whatever crap job I was probably going to do with that show. And I am not like, I'm not going to try to big myself up. It was a nightmare for me, but that episode was a nightmare. They were very friendly enough to cut out the part where like I had to take 5 minutes to like kind of cry it out because
Oh,
I was really disappointed that I was not better at that skill.
Yeah.
Rob came over and gave me this really wonderful pep talk, like friend to friend. And he was like,
oh.
Stephanie, none of us are good at everything. And he's like, none of us are good at everything. He's like, so make something that is going to be true to who you are, that you know so well, and knock their socks off with that. And in that
Mhm.
moment, I was like, it has to be gelato because I haven't done that yet on the show. And I knew that even if things went sideways, I could make them a perfect bite of gelato. So that really did save the day. And I made the gelato bombs, and I knew that the gelato was going to be technically flawless, and that would earn me major points.
Mhm.
And that could be the thing that saved me. And it was. So, when I went up there, the other thing they had cut out was Duff was like, you're not your happy self. Like, what's going on? And
Oh.
I flat out said to him, I was like, Duff, I don't know what I'm even presenting to you. I was like, but I know that I can make very good gelato. And I know that what I'm presenting to you underneath that trash shell is incredible. I was like, so I would like you to just remove that and eat the dessert underneath. And he said it too. He's like, Stephanie, none of us are good at everything. It was the line that kept coming up all
Mhm.
day for me because I'm very hard on myself. And thank God I made it because that was the thing that kept me in the competition to make it to the finale. And when I got the dude, I was like, it felt even better because I had
Right.
such a terrible day that I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I needed that. Like I needed a little
Oh.
boost, you
Oh,
know?
Oh,
Yeah.
and
what a
that's amazing.
moment.
Yeah, and that's amazing to have all that support from your fellow,
Yeah.
castmates as well as even, the judges and coming from Duff saying, look, dude, like you're good. Like not everybody is great at everything. And that is so true for everybody who bakes. Not everybody
Mhm.
can be great at everything. So, really hone in on the skills that you do have and work and practice and practice makes perfect if that's what you want to do, but know who you are
Yeah.
and keep doing you and that's awesome and
Yeah.
it's so wonderful to have that end result for that and bringing you into the finale and so you can show your stuff.
Absolutely. Because that was a major for me. It was a major win because it was also not that I necessarily went to that show needing validation, but it was also validation knowing like I love this one thing so much,
Mhm.
and I wanted it to be showcased as yeah, she knows what she's doing when it
Yeah.
comes to frozen dessert, when it comes to gelato. It's not just me on Instagram talking about this love affair I have with it. It's now other professionals who've made a point to make that a statement. So that
Mhm.
meant, that meant everything to me.
That's huge
So much.
validation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And Stephanie, you got married recently. Is that?
Yeah. It's been a year.
Yes, what an exciting year it's been.
Yeah,
How
so
was
I got
that?
married. I think it was beautiful. Got
And
married.
congratulations.
Thank you so
Congratulations.
much. We got married June 29th. And the best part, like I actually feel like I need to tell this story now, is speaking of gelato, already was insane in making 4 different wedding cakes for my
Yes.
wedding. Never recommend anybody do it. Just don't do it. Like I don't care if you're professional or home baker, just hire somebody else and don't put that stress on you because it is not fun. And everybody in my family wanted to kill me. But anyways, I knew I needed gelato at my wedding and there was
Yes.
no way I was going to be making that. And so I hired this amazing company from Toronto. And in the craziness of filming the show airing, trying to get my wedding shower, my wedding honeymoon all done, I booked the gelato cart for the wrong day. So the day of my wedding, I'm realizing, hey, I never paid the invoice for the cart. Like what? So I look at our emails and I booked it for July 29th, completely wrong wedding day. And
Oh,
I'm sobbing and I was like, I'm so sorry. I know there's nothing you can do. I was so embarrassed. And the girl, honestly, the best customer service I've ever had in my life. She was like, this is not the first time this has happened. She's like, we can still provide you a cart. It's just be like a self-serve. I was like, I don't care. Self-serve will self-serve, like whatever you can do.
Yeah.
I just need gelato. Like it has to be there. Anyways, it all worked out. We got the cart.
Nice.
What an ordeal. But so yeah, so that was very special to have that at the wedding. And it was a small, intimate wedding. And it was beautiful. It was wonderful.
oh, that's
Oh,
wonderful. Yeah, I mean, wedding planning is stressful enough, and then you add all those other things to it.
Not necessary. And me and Marco, we are not like, so the rest of my family was very, I would say, shocked that we had a smaller affair at an Italian
mm,
restaurant. My sister had the big Italian hoopla. Everybody has these big hooplas. And I was like, no, I want it in a restaurant. I want it chill. I want 100 people at the most. Everybody leave me alone. And it was exactly what we wanted. But it's still a wedding. It's still stuff to plan. And
mhm.
4 cakes is insane. So
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
little bit insane.
So one wedding cake is probably insanity enough, but you decided to do 4 different cakes.
Why was
yeah,
that?
because I'm
Why?
just like,
Yeah.
I want to let people try stuff from the show, and I want to do. And my husband's like, you're not a normal person, but I can't. He's like, I can't tell you not to do it because I know that you're going to do it. So just you're going to have to suck it up and get through it. So that was it.
I bet
So,
everybody loved it.
Yeah.
yeah, it was great. It was like a showstopper. It was so fun, and it was like my personal like something to really give to the wedding and give to the
Mhm.
guests as well, right? So it
Yeah.
was great.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you guys ended up honeymooning in Italy.
Yeah, where else? He didn't have a
Yeah.
choice.
That makes
Right?
sense.
And then eating all the gelato all the time. It was awesome.
It was wonderful. It was, like for me, Italy is the place that really changed my life. It changed the course of my career. It's something I say often. Me and him had never gone there together. He hadn't been since he was a kid. So I really wanted to I wanted to show him the Italy that I know and
Mhm.
experience it through my eyes and not just like a tourist travel kind of vacation, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it was very special. And when we left, he was like, "Yeah, okay, I get it." Because he was like, "Why do you always want to come back here?"
Mhm.
But he couldn't, understand that. And then he's like, "I understand it now. Like, I see why this is so special." And I was like, "Got it. I
Well,
know. I
Uh,
that's the
yeah,
best. That is
that's
the best feeling ever.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
How
Sharing something
wonderful.
that you love with a person that you love, the person that you love the most, right?
Mhm.
Just being able to have that connection and have them say, yeah, I get it.
absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely.
wonderful.
Oh,
Well, what do you
very cool.
think? Do you think it's time for a little game?
Sure, I'm down. Let's
All
play.
right.
You're down. You're into
All
this. Let's
right.
go. Giddy up.
So we are going to play this or that.
That.
Very simple concept. We give
All right.
you 2 choices usually, or 3
Maybe
sometimes.
3.
Sometimes
Maybe 4.
5.
Depends on how we're feeling.
And you
Okay.
just rapid fire back at us what your favorite is.
All right, let's do it.
All right. All right. So first, chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
100% chocolate, just right like that. She's like, that was rapid fire for sure.
100%.
Now, when it comes to working with chocolate or vanilla, is your answer still the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. It's the same because if you're asking me to make a chocolate sculpture, I'm saying vanilla. But if we're talking about
That's kind of what I was thinking there.
no, then it's vanilla. If we're baking, chocolate.
Okay. And do you have a favorite chocolate dessert?
That's very hard to answer. That's a really hard one to answer. There is, I, sorry. Oh my gosh. That's my dog playing with his toy. Rocky, give me that. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry.
It's
No,
all
don't be sorry.
good.
It
Seriously.
happens. I know how frustrating it is to try to keep them quiet. I'm like, mute, mute.
So chocolate dessert. I don't know if I can give you guys a favorite. It's a dessert I make that I love. I make a dairy-free chocolate sorbet that is incredible. It is, if I can be honest, what it actually tastes like is like eating a fudgesicle. It's really
Yum.
good.
Oh, I want some.
My favorite, but also I really like a dark chocolate hazelnut tart with sea salt. That's also something that I
Yes.
eating time. That's the number one.
Sounds
Awesome.
delicious. We
It
always get
does.
so hungry after shooting these podcasts, I tell you.
Because I usually start without having had breakfast, which
Right.
is kind of stupid.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
I knew that was going to be your answer.
Yes. It's the Italian in you, right?
The Italian in me. Yeah, it's just, I grew up with espresso in the house with my dad all the time. And, I've been told by my naturopath countless times, you need to cut the coffee, and I just won't. So I just won't. So
They want you to cut it out completely?
no, just she's like, let's maybe just have a little because I'm already so, I'm already so wound up, but I'm like, I can't ever.
Yeah.
And how do you like your coffee? How do you take your coffee?
So if it's espresso, it's black. I do like cappuccinos, but I would prefer to make them at home because I don't like these big things you get if you're out and about. Otherwise, I'm honestly like happy with like a standard drip coffee with a little cream. That's it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Smooth.
Yeah.
Okay. Buttercream. American buttercream, meringue buttercream, or some other type of buttercream?
Swiss meringue only for me. Swiss meringue only. That's it.
It's standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what you use.
Lovely.
Yeah, it really is. And
That's what I use. I also just I don't know. I don't love American buttercream. I never have. I know there's so many different types of way to make it to improve texture or lessen the sweetness. It's just not for me. Yeah.
That's totally fair.
Yeah. My husband doesn't like the Swiss meringue buttercream. He says it just tastes like butter. And he's like, I don't want something that tastes like butter. And I'm like, can't you taste and he's like, nope, all I taste is butter. So I was like, okay. So, but I'm not going to give you the sickeningly sweet American buttercream anyway.
No, it's so true. I do agree. And I do, I think like I feel like the way that I make my Swiss meringue with how it's whipped, and also I go a bit heavier on salt, which like we can talk about after. I go heavier on salt. I find that the butter flavor is not so prominent, because that's the thing that throws most people. It tastes too much like butter, or it's too hard, it's too waxy. These are the common things that you hear. And so just like trying to troubleshoot how to not have that, that flavor profile.
Yeah. I got to work on it a bit more because I mean, I'm still new to trying different buttercreams. And so for me, it's like, oh, it's just so much easier to just make a quick American buttercream, but I want it to be a really good buttercream. So I'd rather venture into the other ones and make them not taste waxy or like butter. So.
Yeah. But Chefanie, I think you're totally spot on though with the use of salt. To kind of balance out, some of that, the sweetness and then also to cut back on some of that butter taste as well.
Yeah,
so for sure. And I do use a higher ratio of egg whites, which I think helps as well. Okay. It does help with the texture. And I find it helps it stabilize a bit better too. So it doesn't, obviously buttercream, melting point, listen, don't put it out in the sun, and it can't sit out on the counter all day, and it needs to be refrigerated. But I do find it helps with travel, especially when I'm delivering cakes. If it's sitting out at a wedding, for example, having a bit higher egg white ratio just helps with it being more stable.
Making notes.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Frantically writing all this down. Yeah. Sweet or savory bakes?
Sweet. I'm sweet.
You're very sweet.
You are so sweet.
But so you worked with the savory stuff for a long time. And is everything that you make now sweet, generally speaking?
No. Okay. It's because for work, yes, absolutely. But there are things in the savory world that I really miss. I really miss like fresh pasta making. So that's something that like I will do as a home, that's like just home hobby now, right? Not
Yeah.
for work. But there are definitely things I miss.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if I have to choose between baking something savory and baking something sweet, I would say I would stick to still something sweet. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to
So much
taste
more
some of
fun.
your stuff.
Yeah, it's just more fun. And also, I don't know what it is. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, I don't know if you'd put a frittata in something baked that's savory, but I don't know. I just feel like if I'm gonna, I don't know, bake a loaf I just want it to like be something that's a bit sweeter. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Makes
Fair.
sense.
No, totally makes sense.
Yeah,
Totally
have
makes
no
sense.
problems with that whatsoever. Okay, cooking or baking? Now we're talking personally. What is your favorite thing to do?
Cooking.
Yeah,
So
because
going
you
back to
can
your original.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you can just kind of play it by ear a little bit more.
Yeah, and I can pull the whole like let's use what I have on hand. What do we have
Mhm.
in the freezer that needs to be used up, or what's in the garden? Like I can play with that a bit more without it being like, oh my God, I got to go to the grocery store because I
Mhm.
don't have sour cream or I don't have something
Mhm.
on hand that I normally would. And also I don't get to do it that often because I tend to be like a bit too tired from work, and I don't love that. I need better work-life balance, but I love cooking for people. And
Mhm.
even if it's just me and my husband or we have friends over, or so I love cooking something that isn't just like a simple Tuesday dinner.
Yeah.
I miss that. I miss hosting, and so it's a nice outlet for me.
Mhm. Do you
Yeah.
do most of the cooking then, even just the simple dinners?
I will say like I mean we have a pretty 50-50 household. So I mean there's no kids yet, so maybe that might change when there's kids involved. But
Mhm.
right now it's pretty 50-50. On the weekends it's usually me.
Mhm.
And then during the week we do, since it's just us, we do keep it fairly simple and he'll kind of tackle that. So it's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very
Awesome.
cool.
Nice to have that.
Very nice. Macarons or choux?
I know what you're going to say.
Out of shoe. I hate macarons so much. I hate them. I hate them as much as I hate cupcakes. And that's a very bold statement.
Oh,
Top tier, most disliked dessert for me.
So, and you're talking about making them and
And
eating
eating
them.
them.
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I would,
So
it's just a personal thing. Like if people who make them and they're beautiful, I'm like here to support everybody. It's just like a personal thing for me. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
so funny. I'm like, I haven't gone so far as to say I hate them,
Yeah.
but they've never been a favorite of mine. They're Christina's specialty and she's fantastic at them. And I have eaten some of hers and been like, wow, I'm actually eating a macaron and enjoying it.
No,
But
and
I,
I've seen on Instagram, like I can attest they're beautiful. I don't know what
Mhm.
it is for me. I don't know. I think it's just because maybe it's just, I think maybe I've honestly just never had one that's made me go,
Mm.
I
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, that's fair.
sit down and say, oh, this is like something I would want again. And maybe
Mhm.
that's why. But also, I have a very big thing with when I eat dessert, I can't have a mouthful of sugar after. Like
Right.
that sort of sugar slick feeling is something I try to avoid, even just like when I'm creating like recipes or flavor combinations.
Mhm.
And again, I haven't had one that's left me feeling like it was just too much sweet, you know?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Christina, if you want to send me some and like let's try, I'd be happy to.
I would
I
be honored to have you try my macarons.
I'm
But
also going to suggest, Christina, that you include in that package some of your chorizo
the
choux pastry because that was so
mm,
delicious.
thanks, Lisa.
Homemade chorizo.
Sounds incredible.
Yeah. Well, Portuguese background that I come from, and yeah,
No, I get that. My, Italian background, my dad we make our own salami,
yeah,
prosciutto, those things. So like I
nice.
respect the art so much. I
Yeah,
respect that art incredibly. Yeah.
so cool. But yes, I would be happy to make you some macarons next time we connect up. So deal. We can do a trade for gelato.
Sure. That works.
Harder to ship, I would say, but
No, we have to meet up in person.
that sounds great.
Yeah.
Definitely make that happen. Okay, brownies, fudgy or cakey?
Fudgy.
Hmm.
They got a squish.
Yeah.
Love a
Yeah.
fudgy brownie. And I think too, it's a nice, because I make so much cake, it's a nice change up texture wise for me too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Stick to
are
the
you
roof of
like,
your mouth.
Yeah. And are
Yeah.
you like a centerpiece brownie gal, or are you like the crispy,
I like a corner.
caramelized? Yes,
I'm a
right?
corner piece, but that stays that follows true with everything. I'm a corner piece with lasagna.
Mhm.
I'm a corner piece with everything. I just love a corner piece on if it's a square pizza, I want the corner piece. It's always
The bread, you're going for the
yeah,
end of the bread. Yeah.
Oh, you
Yeah.
like the heel?
Crust.
yeah,
Yeah.
I do. I always love like the butt of the bread, as my mom calls it. Yeah, I
But
don't know why. I love yeah, I just love like the extra texture from
Yeah.
it.
mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Now, yeah, I am getting really hungry
Hungry.
now. Oh man.
All
Okay.
right. Going back to chocolate, are you a white, milk, dark, or other flavored chocolate lover?
I'm a milk chocolate girl.
Oh.
Okay. Milk chocolate.
Oh.
It's so, pre going to culinary school, I went to school for nutrition. Excuse me, sorry. I went to school for nutrition and it was like dark chocolate only. It's, 2 squares a day with almonds for health. And like, I'm just like, no, it's not okay. If I'm going to eat chocolate, listen, I dark chocolate in desserts, like absolutely, if it's baked in for
Mhm.
sure, like a dark chocolate chunk cookie or like chocolate chunks folded into a loaf or whatever. Yeah, delicious. But like if I'm gonna eat it, I want milk chocolate.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
creaminess of it and that, yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I'm big on the milk chocolate also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Christina?
I'm not a huge chocolate fan,
Right.
but if I'm going to eat a piece of chocolate, it will generally be white. And I know, don't come at me, haters. I know white chocolate isn't technically chocolate. I get it, but that's my go-to.
Yeah, that's my sister too. She like I was making like a caramelized white chocolate last
Yum.
Mm.
week, and when my sister would come over, she would always say like, "Do you have any of the tan color chocolate that's down there?"
So good.
I'm like, yeah, I go.
Gold chocolate.
Hmm.
Yes. Yeah, that's pretty good too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not quite as like blatantly sweet as the white chocolate either. So
Yeah.
that's a nice sort of change up.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm. Okay, gelato or ice cream?
Gelato.
I was like,
Gelato.
what a dumb question. I can't ask you this question.
Oh, listen, don't get me wrong. There is like a time and a place for like 2 scoops on a cone of like local ice cream shop. Yeah,
Mhm.
100% for sure. And like, I know there's people who like debate the science to its core, but I do believe there is a very distinct difference in the science of making those recipes and also like machines you use, whatnot. But I think that they're both great. It just depends on what you're craving and the style you're going for. I really think it's just a difference.
So
Hmm.
how would you define the difference for the layperson? Like if they were like, what is the difference between ice cream and gelato?
So gelato is usually made with less cream, more milk, and it usually has a skim milk powder added to it. Being a less cream-based recipe, and most of the time it also doesn't contain egg either. Some recipes do, like if you're making a tiramisu gelato, for example, or like a cream. Well, the Italian word is crema. If you're making those types of gelato, they'll have egg for extra protein, but usually not. And so because of the fact that it contains less cream, the richness is not the same.
Mhm.
You'll find gelato to be slightly a bit denser, but it feels a lot lighter, a much
Hmm.
lighter mouthfeel. And that's with the presence of so much more skim milk, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what's your favorite type of gelato?
That's a very fully loaded question to ask me. No, so honestly, even in Italy, because it's always made differently. So it's very popular around Easter time. It's called Amarena Cherry, and that
Yes.
flavor gelato is by far my favorite. Always, and I can tell whether it's really good or really poor versus, or sorry, depending on the type of cherry that they're using. Some places just use the syrup. That's a two
Mm.
thumbs down for me. Places that use the actual cherry, it's really delicious. That is my favorite, I think, to this day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a yummy flavor
Yeah.
profile, that
Yeah,
Amarena
it's just a
cherry.
classic. It's nothing crazy.
Hmm.
It's a basic like fiore di latte base, which is
Hmm.
like a milk base. that has this banana cherry folded through, like a really nice ripple. It's just like, it's just classic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
that sounds
delicious.
delicious.
Hmm.
Yes. When I was telling Cristina about this olive oil company I went to that had a bunch of different flavored olive oils and different flavored balsamic vinegars and stuff. And they also had those. I don't want to even try to pronounce it properly because it'll sound so stupid. But the Amarena cherries, it had those there, and it got my brain spinning because I know Cristina loves them.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, what can I do with that? I got to grab some of those.
So Cristina, in Portuguese culture, I feel like they're used as well, or no? Are they put in? I don't know why I'm feeling like they are, but I could be completely wrong. So if I am, don't come at me. I
Well,
just
yeah, cherries is definitely a very big ingredient that's used in a lot of Portuguese desserts, liqueurs, that kind of stuff. I'm not sure if they're Amarena ones though, specifically,
yeah,
or
just
just
like
cherry in general.
cherry in general. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's so regional too. So different parts of Portugal. Same thing with Italy, right? There are things that are more popular in certain areas than
regions,
others.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Right.
yeah, awesome. So that brings us to our last this or that question. If
Okay.
you've listened to our podcast before, you probably have a pretty good idea
The
on what
most
this question
polarizing
is.
question.
It is by far great discussion.
Wrong
And
reality show, but
and I think you actually are one of our guests that actually has some experience on this as well, because I think you were a judge for a competition recently. We're talking about butter tarts and
Okay.
whether or not raisins or no raisins is the best butter tart out there.
Listen. Okay. I love raisins, so I'm saying raisins.
Yay!
And I know it's such a thing, but the raisins for me are it's a texture. Like it adds a textural component. And
Mhm.
I was the nerdy kid that liked the little packs of raisins, and
Oh, I
everyone
love those.
I do love them. And I know it is such a divide. You're
Yeah.
either yes or no. There's no maybe. It's like yes or no. Yeah.
Most of the
I love
time,
it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to convince because in the beginning, I was just kind of on this train feeling like I was supposed to say no raisins. And then
Yes.
the more that I thought about it, I was like, no, I if I'm thinking about a butter tart, I'm thinking about biting into the raisins. And Christina just about lost her mind. She was like, I don't think we can be friends anymore.
So, what's funny? When I was judging the Butter Tart Festival, it was
Yeah.
me and maybe two other judges on the panel who were pro raisin. Everybody else was not. We couldn't use that as like a determining factor though,
Mhm.
like
Yep.
because there was so many other criteria. But when talking to them, they were all like, absolutely no raisin. And there was only three of us who were like, but we love them.
So what was your favorite butter tart that you tasted at this competition?
My favorite one, I'm actually really upset it was not on the running, like to the point where I don't know if I was allowed to do this. I DM'd the company who made them and told them that I thought it was like a flawless butter tart. And
Wow.
should have ranked higher. They had a spicy mango. It was like a mango cayenne butter tart.
Oh,
I
that
loved
sounds
it.
amazing.
Yes, I loved it because they also added like a layer of red pepper jelly and it broke up sort of like the sweetness from the traditional butter tart and it had just the right amount of kick. And we had two categories, traditional and wild card. That was part of the wild card. And I felt that it met the bill of what a wild card butter tart was, where the rest, listen, they're good, but you'd had like s'mores and score and Reese's Pieces. Yeah, those are very fun and cool. But when you're telling me mango cayenne, red pepper jelly, that's hitting the mark
Yeah.
on the wild card,
Yeah. Out of the
Yeah,
box,
Yeah, it's out of the
flavor
box.
combinations. Yeah. Yeah.
for
And
sure.
complexity, like layered flavors on that. Yeah. That would be amazing.
It was
Oh,
so good.
sounds so good.
Nice.
Oh,
And on the traditional side, was it a like on the traditional butter tart, the one that won, was it with
raisins or
raisins
no
or
raisins?
without?
So they had a winner for wild card and winner for traditional, and winner for traditional did not.
No.
Okay, so you can claim a
Mm,
success there.
yep.
Yeah. No, it didn't happen. But I will say, I do think the real like the main reason they won is the crust was like
Mm,
the crust of the day. Like the
Yeah.
crust was cool. Yeah.
And let's be honest, the crust really
it
does.
makes or breaks it.
It makes or breaks it. It's like bread on a sandwich. It's really
Yeah.
not about the filling, it's about the bread. It's the
No, I
vessel.
think if you have like an excellent crust and a well set filling, like those are the two things. Like everything else is okay, like an add-on or whatever, but that,
Mhm.
yeah, your crust, and I want to cut into the butter tart and not have it just, pour all over
Ooze.
the
Yeah.
plate.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, it was their crust that really put them over the edge. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well,
Nice.
we are getting close to the end of our time together, but we would like to ask you, Stephanie, we ask all of our guests if you can provide a baking scrap for us. And that would be a tip or a trick for any aspiring bakers out there to kind of help them to progress in their baking or to just make things a little bit easier day to day.
Okay, I'll give two and I'll make them brief. The first one is like very basic, but I was taught this very on early in my career, and I think it helps with everything. Only use salted butter for everything.
Mhm.
Just get rid of it, because the reality is, even if you're adding salt to your recipe with salted butter, there's not enough salt in that salted butter to then make it too salty.
Right.
All you're doing is adding an extra layer of like flavor enhancement, right? Salt is what brings out the flavors in desserts.
Great
And
tip.
I find when it comes to a buttercream or when it comes to a pastry cream, a caramel, all these things when that also require butter, having that extra bit of salt takes the flavor just one notch up. So I would
Mhm.
say go with salted butter
Salt.
for everything. Um,
Love it.
and the second thing for people who are maybe, whether you're a home baker and you're trying to like figure out what it is that you like to bake or you want, I do think it is important to kind of find your niche and get really good in that niche.
Yeah.
I personally think if you're the jack of all trades, that's fine, but I do think it's really important to like find the thing that you love the most,
Mhm.
get so good at it and feel so confident in it, and then maybe tackle the next thing. But find your niche and go kind of one by one, and like that's the best way to really learn and hone different elements of the baking world.
Perfect.
Yeah. Love
Thank
them.
you for those. Those are really, really
Fabulous.
great tips.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The salted
Nice.
butter, I think I kind of automatically graduated to just like, why am I buying two different kinds of butter and just went with the salted? And you're right. It
Yeah.
does, it makes a difference in the depth of flavor and the layers of flavor. And yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just
And
easier.
you're going to add salt to every bake that you do anyway. There isn't anything that you do.
Yeah,
You should be adding some extra salt to balance out those flavors anyway.
For
So
sure.
if you already have a little bit of a baseline already established, you're adding a little less. You can just, do it more to taste. It's easier to get to where you need to get to from a flavor.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fabulous.
You
Well,
got
thank
it.
you
Very cool.
so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Oh,
It has been so much fun.
Yeah, this has been great. I'm so happy to have been here. You guys are wonderful.
Thank
And
you.
having this platform, people to come on and talk about the art of baking.
It's been so much fun. We're really enjoying ourselves. And aside from occasional tech problems, it's just been wonderful all across the board.
yeah,
So
it's been such a wonderful time chatting with you, Stephanie, and we so look forward to seeing what's next for you. And as you continue your journey towards your brick and mortar, we cannot wait to see that, and we can't wait to see you hopefully on our small screens again. So
Fingers crossed.
yeah, that
that'd
would
be
be a lot of
awesome.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Stephanie.
All right, ladies.
Have a great rest of your day.
Take care.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. That was so awesome.
Oh, isn't she fabulous?
Is this what I say every time? That was awesome.
Well, because they are. I mean, look at this.
No.
How lucky are we? Because this is what we get to do is chat with all these incredible bakers, and they all
No.
have these fun, exciting stories of their whole journey in this
Mhm.
in this baking world that we all
Yeah.
live in and love to be in, and just understanding their passion
Yeah.
and
Seeing the
what they bring to the
similarities
table.
and the differences in their journeys.
Totally.
And that's part of what it never gets old. It's never like, oh yeah, this story, I've heard this. Not that anybody that we talk to would be boring,
No,
but it's
not.
just always interesting and entertaining to see how they got to the place where they're at. And then the differences in all their specialties, like what she was saying, you find your niche and you stick to it. And I was thinking about, okay, so we had Larry, and what do we think of when we think of Larry? We think of him as the bread guru. I mean, when she said nobody's good at everything, I refrained from saying, well, maybe Andre.
Yes, but well, he might be one of the exceptions. I'm
You
sure there
know,
are others out there, but
we'll see.
I'm
When we
sure,
talk to him, we'll ask
yeah,
him, like,
we'll
okay,
ask.
Andre, what's your Achilles heel here?
Yeah,
Anyway,
but
Stephanie, this is not about Andre, but Stephanie was wonderful. I'm going to go back and rewatch the Summer Baking Championship. She's on season 2, I believe.
yes.
And yeah, it'll be fun now that we've had a chat with her to be able to go back and see her in action from a different
Yeah.
perspective, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
and the stuff that she's done was so great. And we didn't really talk about the cast there, but the
Mm,
entire group of bakers they had on the season were so talented
yeah.
and creative and lovely.
Yeah.
And it's almost, we didn't talk about sort of that family energy, but she did mention it
Hmm.
a little bit when she was having that down moment,
Yeah.
during Shark Week. And her castmate came over and gave her that pep talk that got her into that
Mhm.
finale.
Yeah.
So you see those relationships and that
Yeah.
family-esque kind of
Yeah.
love that
Yeah.
they all seem to have for each other.
Yeah.
That we see so evident on Great Canadian Baking Show, and
On
that's
the
one of the
baking
reasons why we
championships
love.
as
Yeah,
well. Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it's so
And to
cool.
think that he was taking the time out of what he was doing to come and talk to her. And then that has stuck with her for this
Mhm.
entire time. And she's passing it on to us. And it's a very good reminder for everybody, like there's nobody who's going to be great at everything. and
Right.
and even to have her reiterate that Duff said that too, like the
Yeah.
judge is not judging as harshly as we feel like they're going to, you know
Yes.
so important to remember, and
Yeah.
then that just even makes it more important to find your niche and get really good at that, so at least you have the one thing. Like she knew gelato was her thing, and so she showcased that and highlighted and
And
used it to move
and
forward.
yeah, and brought it out at the exact right opportunity to
Exactly.
really get her across that line to the
Yeah,
finale.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but what a fun conversation. I could have talked to her
So great.
for hours. She's
I
just
know.
such
Would have been great.
a bright light and
Mhm.
a positive, energetic one in this
Yeah.
baking world,
Yeah.
and so grateful that we had a chance to have that
Me
conversation with
too.
her.
Well, have a great rest of your day.
You
And
as
thanks
well,
everyone
Lisa.
for listening.
So good to see you. Thanks again, everybody, and happy baking.
Happy baking.